Very good morning to you all. Charles here, Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis, Friday, the 15th of May, 2026. And the time is, let's call it as it is, 5 minutes past 10 local time here in Milan. Very good morning to you all. So, Daily Chart Analysis. To be honest, the only chart that I posted this morning was the DXY, of which pretty much needs amendment already. Therefore, I figured decent time to provide a bit of a full breakdown, or at least a little bit of a breakdown for you all in terms of what I am looking for throughout the day and what has happened. So in terms of chart analysis, we have pretty much been forecasting DXY bullishness for pretty much the entirety of the week, if not the last couple of weeks, to be honest. And I will showcase the reason for that decision and that thought process. So weekly order block on that weekly time frame. Of course, we can understand via order blocks and smart money concepts the reason why we were looking in and around that area for the DXY to potentially long from the area. From this order block, we have had a break of structure on that weekly time frame, and of course that break of structure has left us with that weekly order block down the lows, of which we're expecting a rejection from, of which the reaction is coming from the market. Now, refined within that weekly order block, of course, what else do we have in order to refine those areas down? Because of course we are not going to be looking to trade from tremendously large weekly order blocks, so we look to refine those areas down. And here we are on the daily time frame, bottom right hand chart. You can see there was a previous daily order block to the left here. Bottom right hand chart is where I'm showcasing, and you can see price tapped into that the daily order block a couple of times. Beautiful rejection towards the upside from that order block, and again influencing our thought process to believe DXY long positions. Now, of course, in most recent times, we're looking to use newer price action, and particularly we now have, as a result of a couple of days ago, Tuesday the 12th of May, we have had another daily order block being created from our refined area, from that weekly order block. So we were looking for price to dip back into that area, for then looking for continued longs up to our most restrictive EMAs, which at that time would of course have been the 4-hour 50 MA. And what we could see as well is that as a result of not having that full break above that 4-hour 50 MA, of course, we were still not really confirmed bullish, in my opinion, on that 4-hour time frame. Now, of course, as a result of most recent price action, we have then finally broken above that 4-hour 50 MA, meaning that we are now trading alongside the 4-hour 50 MA. And yesterday, as a result of yesterday's daily candle close, we now have the full confluence of the 4-hour 50 MA as well as the daily 50 MAs. Now, why do I mention the EMAs? Because I use the of course I use the DXY, but in particular, I use the daily and the 4-hour as well as the weekly 50 MA as target, or I will also use them, or in addition, I would use those EMAs as support for my position in a certain direction. So the EMA is either onside, using it as confluence to go long, or the EMAs are against the position, which I'll be using those EMAs as management areas on the chart for me to either look to go break even or for me to look to close my position out in its entirety. Now, as a result of finally closing above that daily 50 EMA, we have then closed into a daily order block in the opposite direction. So ordinarily we'd be looking to take short positions out of that daily order block, and of course what we can see is the current daily candle is pushing even more bullish in towards areas that we are pretty much so aware of by way of a market gap area, and as well as that price is then trending in towards that weekly 50 MA for a potential rejection. Now, it's our job to understand, using the DXY, although we are certainly bullish overall and certainly long term on the DXY, expecting, in my opinion, once we do close, if we are to close above that weekly 50 MA at some point in time, then I do believe that the DXY has every opportunity to make a higher high from this area. Now, as we are the here and now, what can we look to expect? Well, nothing in a hurry is the general consensus, is what I'm leading with today. Of course, anticipation of the DXY to roll bearish will, of course, give us a bit of a push towards looking towards taking a long position, let's say on GU, EU, and AU, those immediate cross pairs, and even a short position, let's say on US dollar CAD. Do I believe that is a sensible play at the moment? Not particularly. In my opinion, it would make the more sense to trade alongside the catalyst, trade alongside the DXY, of which the DXY is most certainly showing signs of bullishness coming out of the market. So therefore, in my opinion, it would make more sense to look for short positions using that DXY long, using that DXY strength. So we'd be looking for a short position, let's say, on those cross pairs, EU, AU, and GU, and a potential long position, let's say, on US dollar CAD, to take full advantage of the fact our overall bias is of course, influencing our thought process. So in terms of the here and now, what am I looking at? Well, I can see areas in the market where price could look to turn around. And I have got a wild card in the pack today. And what that would look like is an EU long. Now, I'm not fully convinced by this EU long. However, I can certainly look to understand. Well, certainly when I was charting this up, I was looking to understand, could there be good potential for an EU long? And at the moment, it's not looking likely. There's no higher time frame bias supporting that long position. However, what we do have on the 4-hour time frame is just a bit of an area where there was a clear hold up. So I'll be looking at that in terms of a session low, looking to see if we do get some breaks of structure on the lower time frames. Even better if we could have a bullish 4-hour candle looking to reject that area. We've got 48 minutes left of the current 4-hour candle, so hopefully, within the next 4 hours, we will get a bullish close, or at least a wick rejection to the low on that 4-hour time frame, and then the next 4-hour candle will look to see if we can break those structure points towards the upside on that 15-minute time frame. And what I mean by that is we'll look to isolate an area in the market where price is failing to break above. And then once we do have that break above, identify if there is imbalance left behind. So an ideal scenario, of course, would be there'd be a 15-minute order block left down at the lows as a result of that break of structure. Once price then breaks the structure, comes back to that order block, I'll be looking for a lower time frame break of structure to look to take price back up to the highs. As I've said, would that make sense based on the fact that I'm overall DXY long? No, it wouldn't, but understanding that the DXY could indeed look to have a turnaround at some point, that I would then be looking to take advantage of that DXY weakness stepping into the market, which would just be a higher low being created on that DXY. So as I said, this is the wild card for me today, just looking to trade those pullbacks if the opportunity presents itself. However, if you're looking at this in terms of the better play to be looking to take, then of course I'd be looking to take EU shorts. EU shorts from a valid point of interest. There are a couple of areas on that market. We do have a couple of 4-hour order blocks that make sense. And as you can see here, I was just trying to measure the most recent daily range in terms of what is likely to come out of the market. Could I foresee a pullback coming into that 4-hour 50 MA? Supported short is a good example here by the 4-hour order block supported short, which would be the good example of that 4-hour 50 MA towards the downside. So of course, most recent price action, we're failing to break, if we look in here, for example, failing to break that 4-hour 50 MA. 4-hour 50 MA was keeping price above it. We've then had the first break below the 4-hour 50 MA. We've made a lower low, lower high, lower low. And then, of course, after a lower low, of which is being created now, anticipation that a lower high would form, and then we'd be looking to take that short position from that lower high area to take advantage of that lower low continuation down into that weekly 50 MA, where, of course, we'd be looking for a bit of rejection for the rest of the week. With that said, there's only 12 hours and 45 minutes remaining of the current weekly candle and, of course, importantly, of the current daily candle. So there's not too much to play in terms of looking for the longs. I believe if price is to come down to this area, I'm not really sure what amount of liquidity would be left in the market, considering there's only 12 hours left of that daily candle. And as I say, looking at most recent daily candle range, it would be quite, if we say, a bit far-fetched to anticipate a daily candle to print, if I can get my words out, to this degree of length, and then have liquidity to then push us back up into profits from the low. So potentially a good looking long setup coming into the market next week. However, I hope you can understand why the overwhelming bias would be to wait for the short scenario up at these highs after waiting for that lower time frame confirmation up at these areas, as you can see up here, that is already highlighted with the alerts there sat waiting for price to come back to those areas for us to look for a short. So again, short positions are most certainly favored based on the fact that the DXY long term, in my opinion, is looking bullish. Now, what do I have in the immediacy which I'm actually looking to speculate on? So that's going to be a Gbpcad long, providing I can get, again, a break of structure. Definitely worth mentioning, I simply post areas on the chart where I foresee there could be a reaction from. That does not by any means indicate an immediate position is going to be taken by myself. What it means is I'm told based on my technical ability that from certain areas I should be inclined to look in those areas for breaks of structures. For good example, can I identify what price action is doing? Can I see a break? Is an order block left behind for me to look to manipulate based on a lower time frame break of structure, be it a 1 or a 5 minute time frame? So Gbpcad is what I'm looking at in the immediacy. Again, this 4-hour order block is most certainly mitigated. However, coming to the chart this morning, what I had to understand is, why are we getting that rejection from this area? How can I make that make sense on the chart? So I'm looking to the left to understand what exactly is going on. So at some point in time, there was indeed a 4-hour order block there, if I refine it a little bit better. And then as price broke up from that area, tapped right back into that 4-hour order block, and their price went back up to those highs. So of course, if price is now looking to return to that area, I am now inclined to look into that area to understand, is there enough for me to look for a trade? Now I go to my 15-minute time frame to understand what is most recent price action doing, and of course you can see we are overwhelmingly bearish, and we have been we'll just call it since yesterday, as a result of those two bearish engulfing candles that pretty much wiped out price action, changing the bias somewhat in the immediacy, to be honest. Now, what I'll be looking for is going to be a break of structure of that immediate 15-minute structure, a pullback into this 15-minute order block that is already there available. Once you can even refine that order block down, there is a 5-minute order block right there at the lows, which an aggressive long position is most certainly available as well. However, for me, I do require a break of structure to the upside as a result of it's Friday today. I'm not really inclined to be looking for aggressive entries today. More often than not, I'm just going to sit back, wait for price just to develop, show me its intention, and then off I go based on setup and entry criteria, looking for that long position. So at the moment, nothing for me to trade on Gbpcad. My alert is very much so here, of which you'll see on that alert that once I do get a break, I will indeed just set a limit order, and that would be from this 15-minute order block. What else do we have on the market to be looking to play with? Let's have a look at GJ today. GJ today. So GJ, if that's going to load, does it make sense for me to be looking to take a long position into this current weekly candle that is printing incredibly bearish? Well, I do have confidence for that based on the previous weekly candle. We have that wick imbalance. It hasn't been put on the chart, to be honest, but you can see it quite clearly. A wick imbalance to me is indicating that, of course, liquidity is led there around in that area for me to have a look at to see what I can understand can come from that price action. So, of course, down there at the lows, once we look to refine areas down around that wick imbalance starting from the weekly time frame, here we are. Daily time frame, daily order block. Then again, we can see rejection coming out of that area. So I need to then ask myself, well, if rejection is coming out from that area, if price is then going to return back to that area, should I be looking for a position? That's when I head down to the lower time frames to seek to understand what is price action doing. Can I locate a break of structure? Does it make sense based on my confluence across all the other cross pairs? And we can look to execute accordingly. Now, something that must be said about GJ is I was looking to have a trade on that pretty much throughout the week. I think it was last week. If we head towards the left, we can see as a result of price pushing bearish into this area, we had this bullish candle which left a tremendously large 15-minute order block that price immediately tapped into, shot off to the highs and didn't come back. However, once you refine that area down, we have a pretty much half the size based on the 5-minute order block. So does that mean I'm going to be looking for an immediate long position out of that 5-minute order block? Absolutely not. The first thing that I'm looking to understand is, what is price action doing in the immediacy? Does it make sense for me to take immediate long positions when price action is evidently printing bearish? So there's the answer rhetorically, and I'll answer it for you: no. Therefore, I need to be waiting for breaks of structure. And you can see here my illustration is already there for those in Frgnt Mastery, whereby I showcase what exactly I'm going to be looking for. So again, identify an area in the market where price is failing to break above, in this instance, of course. Pair that up, marry that up with basic elements of price action based on lower lows, lower highs, lower lows and lower highs, etc. Lower lows being created in the market, therefore my most recent lower high is going to, of course, be a structure point. I've also charted on the market a key structure point, of which if this area is broken, then of course down at this low, if I do get a 15-minute order block, then of course that also would be a limit order, just like on Gbpcad. So what I'm looking for in the immediacy is price to come into this 5-minute order block. I'm not going to be looking for positions unless we do get that break, or unless we do get price pushing into that 5-minute order block. And then I want to see that 5-minute order block do something. I want that 5-minute order block to show me the signs of liquidity that we had previously. And what I mean by that is, you can see we've had a clear break of structure to the left as price pushed into this area. Off we went, we shot off to those highs, we broke structure. Therefore, I'm understanding price action in this method that after a higher high has been confirmed, or rather after a higher low has been confirmed by way of higher high, price then comes back into an area, not looking for any immediacy as a result of price action bearish, break of structure, fall back into a point of interest before then looking to take price slightly higher. Unfortunately, against my position today is going to be that daily 50 EMA as my most limiting 50 EMA at the moment. Therefore, my targets are very clearly defined by way of the daily 50 EMA. And what I do also have here on GJ is a daily order block that's not put on the chart, but you can see the imbalance there, again created by yesterday's bearish candle closure. Therefore, that is very clearly my target for today if I am going to be looking to get involved in any long position today on GJ. So as you can see, a pretty nice looking setup, but it's certainly not ready at this point. Need that order block to show me signs that, okay, then Charles, you should be looking for a position at this point. But at the moment, as you can see, price action is bearish. So that's what I've got so far in terms of immediate favorites: Gbpcad, GJ, EU, bit of a wild card, but I have just seen an alert come up on my phone that EU is printing, bearish, breaking those structure points. So if we do get that 4-hour candle close bearish below this area, then I'm simply going to remove that in its entirety, and I'll be waiting for price to pull back into that valid 4-hour order block as a point of interest. Or what I'm hoping I don't see is price just completely melt down to the area in which where I'll be looking to take a long position for the day. So it's one of those that will lead me nicely onto a second topic. What you will see, and as traders yourself, I hope that you're coming up with your bias for the day. You're looking to understand your thought process, what is price likely to do. But with that said, if you don't get your entry criteria, if you don't get the setup to be presented to you, then there's simply no trade. And as I've mentioned this morning with those in a specific group, that it's all well and good to forecast ahead. It's also all well and good to see price go in your direction. But don't feel bad if you don't get to pull back. What you should do is take confidence of the fact that your analysis, let's say, for example, to put it to the test, if we have a look at UJ rolling back for a couple of days or even weeks, we go to show more for a second, bear with me, we can have the DXY. So looking at the DXY, this was 4 days ago, and what you can see quite clearly on my top right hand chart, that weekly time frame, understanding that price was looking to push bullish. Daily, refined, understanding that my arrow here is indicating bullishness, in my opinion, to come out of the market. Refine that down to the 4-hour and 15. Those are the areas that I was looking for a turnaround on price action. Now take that forward to today. We head to the DXY just now again. What we will see is the forecast has indeed materialized. So it's not an ego booster, but it definitely shows me that, okay, my thought process is aligning correctly. So as an analyst, good thumbs up. So all I need to do is manage my trader self, of which all that is identify the setup, identify my entry criteria, and that's analysis, and or rather, so that is you being a great analyst, coupled with the fact your trader element, and there you are off to the races as a profitable trader. So just sit back, utilize the alerts, and off you go trading successfully. So I can see the countdown coming in the top right hand corner, so I will leave it there. What I will do is thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for your support across all the channels. I do appreciate it. All the very best in your trading day. Do take care. Charles.